down the left-hand side. We're going to read through that together, and then we'll get started. Well, dear friends, today our congregation gathers in prayer and hope to begin another year of ministry together. We bring with us the memory of a year like no other, even as we move into a future that we cannot yet imagine. Yet even now, as in every age, God is our refuge and our strength. In times of plenty and want, in times of conflict and peace, in times of growing and pruning, we remember, and I invite you to respond, God has called us for such a time as this. We remember the past year with lament and gratitude. We have lost so much, and so much still feels uncertain. We have also witnessed God's hand at work in new and unexpected ways. We delight at hidden seeds bearing surprising and wonderful fruit. When our own resources fail, when we cannot predict the future, when we must rely on God alone, we remember God has called us for such a time as this. We celebrate this moment and the many ways God has held us together as a community. We give thanks for the gift of our church building and the welcome it provides, even as we bless God for the marvel of technology and the new bonds of connection it makes possible. When our bodies need sanctuary, when our minds need expanding, when your grace must transcend our limitations, we remember God has called us for a time as this. We look ahead to the road we will travel together this year. We anticipate and receive with joy the new gifts God's love has planned. We pray for the grace to let go of what has served its holy purpose. When we are trailblazers or followers, when we are seekers or visionaries, when we must walk by faith and not by sight, we remember God has called us for such a time as this. And so we pray, grace our meeting, O God, with the gift of your Holy Spirit, the Spirit who has guided the church from the beginning, the Spirit of our risen Lord Jesus, the Spirit who sends us as healers and restorers of your beloved world. You are the source of our life together. You are the rock and cornerstone. You have called us for such a time as this. Well, once again, welcome. Thank you for being here for our first ever annual meeting as Gloria Christi Federated Church. First thing we have to do is we have to establish a quorum of our two separate congregations so that we can take a vote for dissolution. That way we can pour both of our congregations into one new congregation. And so I'm going to ask, Kenny, were you doing it? I'm going to ask, does Palo Christi have a quorum?
Yes, we do.
Okay, Gloria Dei. I need to see Gloria Dei folks. Let's just show a show of hands. Gloria Dei folks who are here. And let me just do a count. We have enough for a quorum. We have enough for a quorum. And so our first vote, and I'm going to let Steve welcome everybody and call the meeting officially to order. Sorry, brother, I'm kind of stepping on your toes. And then I'll allow you to walk these two congregations through vote for dissolution.
Okay, good morning. We officially have a quorum.
Yay!
Thank you. So as Pastor said, the first thing we need to do is dissolve our two former congregations so that we can form one, Gloria Christi. So this is going to be done by congregation. And so I'll start with Gloria Dei. And the motion that I need to have made by the floor is to dissolve Gloria Dei pending the approval of our new Articles of Incorporation by the state. Is there such a motion? Second? Second. Is there any discussion? That would have been Karen Miller. Any discussion? Then all those in favor of the motion signify by raising your hand. And the motion passes. Well, excuse me, is there anyone opposed? Then the motion passes. Well, the next order of business would be to do the same thing for Palo Christi. And I would entertain a motion from Palo Christi to dissolve the Palo Christi congregation pending the acceptance of the Articles of Incorporation by the state for the new church, Gloria Christi. Do I have a motion? There's a motion. Is there a second? Seconded. Mary seconded.
Kevin McAllister?
Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. I can't, no, I can't vote. Okay, opposed? Motion carries. We've already done the litany and prayer. Okay, we have a set of minutes from Gloria Day 2020. We need to approve those minutes.
And actually, you know what? Right before we do that, I'm going to send these two attendance sheets around. We need to make sure that we've got everyone's name who was here today. So I'm going to send these around both sides. And please, in place of telephone number, put your congregation so that we know which from both congregations were here.
Okay, so we have a set of minutes from the Gloria Day annual meeting from a year ago. I would love a motion to approve those minutes. And is there a second? Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Raise your hand. Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, we now move on to the Constitution, and I would like Paul West to give us a primer on the Constitution, the steps that have been involved, what the Constitution entails, and then after he speaks, I'll ask for a motion for approval, and then we have discussion. So don't ask questions until we have the motion on the floor, please. Paul?
Thank you, Steve. And thank you all for being here. This is an important move forward for these two congregations to become one federated church. The task force, which I had the pleasure of moderating, has spent well over a year going through the process of developing, first of all, a plan of agreement, which you all hopefully have seen. It was distributed. And then the next large document that we had to produce was the Constitution bylaws for the new congregation. Hopefully you've all seen that. I know it's been distributed by a couple of sources, either over email. I think some hard copies were available at the church in the past during Sunday services. And this will be the constitutional document that we're going to vote on this morning, but is the document that's going to be the underwriting foundation for this new church. This document is not going to give you a complete, definitive list of all of the operating procedures that will be published for this congregation, because it's the Constitution. There will be a subsequent document to that will be developed by the Congregational Board that will develop a complete list of our bylaws. Yes, that's how we are going to move this forward. And the new Congregational Board will be charged with that task of developing those bylaws. Now, that's not to say that just the Congregational Board is going to produce the bylaws, because we've talked amongst the task force, and we are going to be doing our best to co-opt members of this congregation into the process of developing those bylaws. We have a member of the task force that's going to be very closely involved, who's kept a lot of notes and things that we've talked about, said this needs to be included in the bylaws, this does, and this doesn't. So we're going to be working through the process that way. So the Constitution that you have before you is, or that has been submitted, is the base constitution for this new congregation. Hopefully, you have had an opportunity to review, to study, and to absorb that constitution. So that's what we're here to vote about, part of what we're here to vote about today. So Steve, do you want me to take questions, or are you going to take questions? Oh, go, here.
Okay. I need a motion to approve the new constitution. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Okay, and a second? Okay, now we will take discussion. So if you have questions of Paul or anyone, feel free to speak. Not all at once. Okay, there being no questions. Oh, we have a question.
Yes, it already has. In fact, the one that was sent out yesterday has that change in it already.
Good question. Any other questions?
One of the things that I did not mention earlier is that this Constitution has been approved by both the Synod and the Presbytery. As a matter of fact, those two bodies, we had representatives from both the Lutheran Synod and the Presbytery working very closely with the task force as we developed this Constitution. And they are in full agreement. As a matter of fact, they're very excited about the possibility of these two congregations coming together as one. So just so you don't have any questions, this document isn't something that we developed in isolation. The Synod and the Presbytery were with us in lockstep every process that we went through.
Yeah, thank you for that. I want to extend a word of thanks to, on the ELCA side, on the synodical side, to Reverend Lowell, who was with us, as well as Bob Schultz from the Presbytery. They did a wonderful job of providing for us frameworks for this, as well as all of the documents that we've worked through, and then worked with us very closely as we shaped it. So I very, very rightly said, this is done in coordination, and how excited our two denominations are that we're doing this, that we're attempting this. So thank you to both the Synod and to the Presbytery, and thank you to all of those who came to our informational meetings. Right? I really want to believe that we don't have a lot of questions now because we had some of those conversations earlier. I know you've all read it thoroughly. I know that you're all really excited and you approve a lot of the work that we did, but I think all of those informational sessions are why we don't have any questions now, so thank you.
Are there any other questions? Then I would ask for a vote. Show of hands. All those in favor of approving the new Constitution, raise your hand. Opposed? The motion carries. Now that we have a new Constitution, it's time to call a pastor. And what I'd like to have is a motion to extend the call of Pastor Brent to be our pastor. Okay, is there a second? Is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of calling Pastor Brent to be our pastor, raise your hand.
Forgot I get to vote on ours.
Anyone opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Congratulations, Pastor.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
We will now elect our congregational board. And the interim board, which contains members of the session and the Gloria Dei Council, have put together a list of candidates with their consent, I might add. These aren't just pulled from the air. list of candidates
Took
to
names from
serve.
Pat.
And there are staggered terms, there are different lengths of term. For instance, Paul and I believe, have agreed to 1-year term. And then there are a couple people that have 2-year terms and a couple that will have 3-year terms. And so every year we will have an election and we will elect the number of people who are expiring so that we maintain a board. Number of people whose terms are expiring.
That's right. You're not going anywhere, right?
Hopefully the people don't expire. Anyway, so
Yes.
we have a rotating group that comes each year, new faces on the board each year. And so our slate of officers of actually the board is myself, Paul West, Marilyn Mueller, Harriet Hootie Redwine, Terry Bethel, and Chris Havlick.
And can we have those folks stand just so people can recognize who you are?
And at this point, I would ask for a motion to approve the slate of candidates for the Constitution, or for the Congregational Board. So moved. Is there a second? Second?
And just for a point of order, for the folks who are taking notes, I know we've been together online and in person here for a little while, but if you could say your name, first and last name, so that they can get it recorded if you make a motion and if you second. Alice.
Okay, any discussion? Oh, yes. They're determined. I believe Marilyn and Hootie are 2 years and Carrie and Chris are 3. I'm guessing at that. I'm
Nope,
pretty
you got it
sure.
right. Yep.
Okay.
Yep, you got it right.
Pretty sure that's right. Any other questions? Then I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of the slate of candidates for Congregational Board, raise your hand. Opposed? Motion carries. At this point, I will turn the microphone over to Dave Alexander and Ken Miller, who will talk about the financial reports and the ministry plan for the coming year. Actually, the past year and the coming year.
Right.
So,
You can, yeah, if you'd like to. Yeah, because you need, sure, no worries.
you need this? I don't know.
Can you turn that one on, James? Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I think it was going to be a disaster, me sitting down there trying to do notes and stuff falling. But the first thing is just to review Gloria Day's finances for the past year. And numbers are always kind of boring, but if you look in the annual report, there'll be a balance sheet, a year end for Gloria Day. And after that, several pages of the balance sheet, I did a page of 5 or 6 footnotes, which is basically a summary of the previous year. And I'm going to look to the footnotes really, and just to go through things real quick and not to hopefully bore with numbers, but I got to give you some numbers. So the general fund income this past year was $117,467, which is about $1,800 above what we had budgeted. But general fund expenses were $190,229. We used a little over $8,000 in dedicated funds, which I can talk about a little bit later, maybe when we do the budgetary plan for next year to explain all that. But the general fund expense totals then were $182,143, which gave us a net deficit of $64,676. And as bad as that sounds, the budgeted deficit was $83,141. So we actually ended up about $18,465 better than what we thought. I'd still say the major concern going forward is just looking at the last 4 years or so of the decrease in budgeted income, pledged and non-pledged income that has come in. And just give you an idea, a real quick overview of what that has meant. If we go back just to 2018, budgeted income for Gloria Day was about $275,000. 1 year later, come down 40,000, 235,000. Come down 2020, a drop of 50,000, 186,000. And this past year, come down another $60,000 to 117,000. Looking at those last 4 years or so, for example, on Palo Christi, they went from 140,000, gradually ratcheting down at each step to ending up at 98,000 this last year. So if you look back in 2020, when we started to talk about this union of the two congregations, combined 2020, we had about $300,000 in income. Even this last year, the two churches together had about $215,000, which you'll see when I present the budget for going forward to 2022, you'll see the difference. Now, also shown on the balance sheet, we at Gloria Day have what we call Lutheran Community Fund. That was started back in the early 2000s with a grant funding of $100,000. Our Lutheran Community Fund is a scholarship fund that we have used over the years in college scholarships. This past year, we had just 2 scholarships, $2,000 each. We've given out over the years just under $80,000 in scholarships, 79,000 plus, which has been pretty nice. We have that money invested in 3 Vanguard accounts. Over this last year, our gain with a good market year was $25,000. So we ended up, that Lutheran Community Fund at the end of the year sat at about $185,000, which is strictly for scholarships. We have used some of those funds in the past and even in this last year to help pay our deficits. We were able to replenish all of those funds with the sale of the property that I'll talk a little bit about as well. And if you look in the balance sheets again, there is a sheet that'll have just on the sale of the property. So the Gloria Day property was sold March 26th. The initial, if you want to say sale price, was $2,410,000. Our buyer asked if $400,000 of that could be given as a gift, a charitable gift with no strings attached, which actually ended up being a win-win situation for both of us. For him, it gave him a charitable contribution, was able to do a 1031-like kind exchange of properties. For us, it gave us $4,000 or $400,000 with no 6% sale price commission to pay. So we actually saved $24,000. Our realtor did not lose commission. Commission for him on that was paid by the buyer. So our realtor did okay. We got an extra $24,000. The buyer got the advantages as well. We ran that by legal of the synod for their opinion, and they said, that's fine. Legally, it's fine. That can be done. So we proceeded with that. So you take that $2,410,000, take the $400,000, come down to the $2,010,000. With that, you had closing costs, paying off a mortgage of about $200,000 that we had, and plus some other additional costs. From the sale of proceeds, we gave a $100,000 gift to our synod. We gave a $50,000 gift to Palo Christi. So at the end of the day, when you put all those things together, the remaining proceeds were a little over $1.9 million, $1,936,000. What we have done at Gloria Day is create a $1.4 million endowment fund through the ELCA. Lisa Higginbotham is who we worked with, who is based out of the Los Angeles area with the Synod. That will be money that will be meant for ministry. The way the endowment is set up is that technically up to 4% could be withdrawn as based on the investment account balance December 31st at the end of the year. Don't know if we'll do that next year or not. We'll see. But it gives us some money, certainly some very good money for ministry needs. It's not intended for operational needs, but intended for ministry needs. But it's a very significant amount that we will have in going forward. In addition to budgeting operating expenses, many Gloria Day members and friends support projects or needs by making contributions to dedicated accounts and memorials that we have. Examples of such support in 2021 include scholarship funding from the B-Rate Foundation of approximately $2,200. Thanksgiving basket project that we did was $1,630. $1,000 to Family Promise, a church rummage sale, a Gloria Day to help with moving costs, and $500 going to the support youth activities. We also simplified our dedicated accounts and memorials, and you'll see listing dedicated accounts, meaning we've set up different areas over the year, such as social ministry, maintenance, music, etc. There's a lot of different. So we have about $32,000 in dedicated accounts, another $8,000, $40,000 total in dedicated accounts and memorials. Memorials being funds that have been donated in people's names who have passed on, that those monies that can be used for specific purposes as well. And this will be combined and going over to the Federated Church budget, the addition of that $40,000. Then, special note, I just want to say when we left the Gloria Day campus that we respectively retired our columbarium. So the cremains were all given to the families, loved ones. All families received full refunds. So with sale proceeds, we were able to do that as well. So that kind of breaks down from Gloria Day 2021. So I can kind of stop there if there are any questions further for me to answer. Then I'll let Kenny. Kenny, do you want to come up and do, or you can even do back there, however you want to do.
Please.
You're welcome.
Yeah,
My wife-
I echo that. Thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
My
Thank you for that.
my wife Rhonda, who is up seeing our newest grandchild from 2.5 weeks ago, or she's up in Vancouver, Washington right now. But many a time over these last 2 years, she said, "Wow, you've taken on a part-time job down at Gloria Day," and with task force, with finance, with budget, represented the Gloria Day and the sale of the property. Yeah, it's been a lot, but you know, I've had a lot of fun doing it, but kind of looking forward to a break coming up too.
Did you say fun?
A little bit. Let me have Kenny let.
So, I mean, I have to admit that I don't have a whole lot to add or to offer. I know that Dave and Carrie and some of the other Gloria Day members did most, if not all, of the heavy lifting for the financial team and financial committee. I know that if you want to look at some of the details, the year-end balance sheet and the year-end financial statements are in the are in the documentation, in the documentation here that was passed out and at the door. The other thing that I want to say, though, was that it was just brought to my attention that we actually have, Brent, I'm not sure that Palo Christi, I thought that we had a quorum, but we have 16 instead of 17, so I'm not sure if Palo Christi has a quorum of voting.
Does anybody at Palo Christi want to challenge? Okay, I don't see anyone challenging, so that's okay. We
Okay.
can move forward.
Okay, with that. Are there any other questions that I can maybe try to answer about the Palo Christi financials? Dave, I think you did just a fantastic job of giving lots of details and the footnotes and all the information. It's just a lot of heavy lifting there. Thanks a lot.
So could we have a motion to approve the 2021 financial reports for Palo Christi and Gloria Day? I heard a motion. Okay, and second? Lou seconds, okay. Any questions for any of the presenters? Then I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of approving the financials? All those opposed? Financials are approved. Thank you very much. 2022 ministry plan and budget. Dave.
Once again, I ask you, don't shoot the messenger. So when looking at doing a budget, special thanks I want to give out to Kelly Wyman, to Kenny Miller, to our office manager, Ann Skipper. Initially, we met together as an interim budget task force, looking how to bring documents together from the two congregations, setting up different line items and the different budgeting process of the two churches and how we could make that more usable going forward. So that's hopefully is what we have done. Basically, when you get to budgeting, it still comes down to income and expenses. It's basically those two things. So income, initially we budgeted looking at what the funding was for the previous year, and looking at this downward trend that I've given you, is we looked to budget 80% of what we had as pledged and non-pledged income the previous year, which would have been about $165,000 to start out, plus facility use and other small areas that can bring in income. We didn't hit that $160,000 figure. You'll see it's roughly $135,286. Then you look at facility use, some minor ways of picking up another little amounts of income. That our income projected right now is $147,386. So if you look right there and go to the back page, you'll see the figure on projected expenses, total expenses, it's $219,000. So that is a deficit of $71,614. The biggest part of expenses is salaries, benefits. About 70% of our expenses are in that category, from full-time minister salary, benefits, a part-time Annie Skipper works 20 hours a week, and then our Karen Murphy for music. So you look at those three people and quote their salaries and benefits is $153,544. That's 70% of the total expenses. You certainly look at other areas. For example, benevolence. Let me explain how we're doing that. And that is a 50-50 split on benevolence to the synod and the presbytery. That is based on 5% of projected general fund income. And in our Constitution, it says also that's a 50-50 split, how we do that. Then you've got your administrative costs, you've got your maintenance costs, you've got insurance costs, all those things for maintaining and going on. So that's where you end up with that figure of the 219,000. Yes, we have funds to cover the deficit of the $71,614. Roughly at year end, and monies that were kept from sale of property at Gloria Day was about $425,000. Plus you have the $40,000 in dedicated funds and memorials. You have roughly a little over $100,000 from Palo Christi to start out. So we've got the funding, but I think people can see that in the long run, that's not a sustainable solution. Yeah, we'll get through next year. We'll get through beyond that if we want to. But I kind of use the analogy of an old car. That's where we are. We've got an engine, a car that's been great. It's got us going through the two congregations over the years. Now we're getting more into maintenance costs, one more thing after another. Has that time come to give the old car more time, or is it time to upgrade to a new model? That new model means, you know, the old model, you don't have monthly payments. Well, we don't have a mortgage right now, so that's kind of a little comparable there. It's a pretty good perk. But in going forward, that new model is going to be things like getting a new website built. I think we're seriously going to have to look at help in advertising, help in marketing, and we put in very modest amounts for those in the budget, but I think in going forward, that's going to be a big thing for the congregational board, looking at some of these different areas and cleaning up the property, getting signage out there. There's stuff we have to do, and we can do it. We've got the funds there. But I think it's going to be, do we sit and keep going the way we're going, or do we look at new ways to explore? And I'm just going to throw it out there. I'm in for the new ways to explore. But again, I've expressed a little bit on the endowment fund that we created. That's $1.4 million. That is, Mary Beth Barron would have a little bit more information on this if there's questions, but it's invested in a large investment fund through our synod. Our expense and fees is just a smidge over 1%. It's a great deal. It's done very well. It's a very large fund with multiple diversification, and now it's invested. It's done very well. And again, we do have the option to taking out 4% of the principal yearly for ministry. That's not, again, not meant for operational needs, but a lot of stuff that we can do with ministry down the road as well, that we've got funding available for that. So I think I'm going to stop there and see if there's any other particular questions I can go over.
Before we do the questions, could I have a motion to approve the ministry plan and budget for 2022? Is there a second? Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve it. Now, is there any discussion? Questions, comments?
Giving units, it's been roughly 35 to 37 for the combined
For both.
congregations. Yeah.
I agree.
And I really agree. No tomatoes coming up, that's good.
Please.
Did you have any ideas on the new ways to explore?
Not that I can speak to right
Okay.
now.
I can. So, thank you, Dave. Really, really, really good sort of overview. And certainly, I want to speak to this, especially before we vote. So there's a story in Scripture that Jesus shares, and I think it's very pertinent to where we are right now. Jesus tells a story of a landowner, right? A landowner and a vine dresser. The landowner has a fig tree on his property. The fig tree is starting to get a little withered, starting to get a little long in the tooth. That fig tree isn't producing fruit the way it should, the way it has in the past. It's getting a little bit like that old car, right? And so the landowner says, I'm getting rid of this fig tree. It's not working. It's not doing its job. Can't use it anymore. I'm going to rip it out. I'm going to get rid of it. The vine dresser, anyone know this story? What's a vine dresser say to the landowner? Look at y'all. Vine dresser says to the landowner, don't rip it out yet. Give me a year. Let me dig around the roots. Let me put some good fertilizer in and around it. If after a year it's still not producing fruit, then you can rip it out. Now, I've always struggled with that, and I think congregations in general have struggled with that story, right? Because the assumption usually when you hear that story is what? Who's the fig tree? Who's the fig tree? Us, right? Either us as individuals or us as the church, right? And we go, I don't like this story. I don't like this story. It sounds like I'm not giving enough. It sounds like I'm not producing enough. And it sounds like what's going to happen to me? We get yanked out. This is not a happy story, right? This doesn't get us excited. Here's the problem. We listen to that story and we hear it incorrectly. Who are you? Who are we in that story? Maybe. Depends on the day, Carrie, maybe. We're the soil. We're the land. We're what God created. What can come from us? Good fruit. What can come from us? New growth. New vines. We're the soil. Right? And sometimes if the soil hasn't laid fallow, if all of the nutrients have been sucked up out of it and it hasn't renewed itself, it's not going to grow what? Anything. And that stuff that's dying and dead should be what? Thrown out. There are parts of our lives, there are parts of my life where I might get jealous, I might get angry, I might get vengeful. I hope those parts get ripped out because that's not good fruit. I want us all to think about how this next year might go because Dave's right. Our leaders who have worked really hard for 2 years, Dave's being gentle. 2.5 years ago, we looked at this and we said, there's plenty. We merged these two congregations. We're going to be just fine. Then this happened. I think we all look back and go, God, if we had known this was going to do this for 2 years, I'm not sure we all would have ventured this, right? Maybe God's got a better idea. I want us all to be thinking about the next year. How are we going to dig down to our roots? Now that sounds easy, but it's not fun. Digging down to our roots means we got to take things off the wall. We got to put things away and maybe let some things go. Gloria Day, folks, you've done a lot of that. I've had lots of folks come up to me over the last year and just say, lamenting, heavy on their heart, oh, I miss our sanctuary. And they look at me sort of with accusing eyes, right? It's always fun to be the pastor. You did this. I miss it too. I miss it. I missed it especially this year because I didn't get to be in here with all of you, right? I miss it. We know what it's like to have to let go. But as you can see with this ministry plan and the last year as well, this is not sustainable going forward. We can't have $60,000 and $70,000 deficit budgets going forward. That's not producing good fruit. That's not healthy. If anything, that means we need to get out of the way, right? This needs to be used for something different. The vine dresser says, not yet. Not yet. Give me a year. Let's put some good fertilizer on it. Now we're to your question, aren't we? What's that good fertilizer going to look like? How are we going to figure this out? I promise you, the days of just going and knocking on doors and saying, hey, come on over, that's done. That ain't going to work. That ain't going to work. We've got to figure out how to work with people out there who are also soaking in good nutrients. We've got to figure out where God has planted things outside of our church and they're going well, and then say, how can we be a part of that? Family Promise is one. I promise you, they are thrilled that we did this. Anybody catching that report, just how much funding went to Family Promise this year? Well over $1,000. That's on top of all the other stuff that we do. Volunteering, allowing families, hopefully soon to come back, probably going to be in the fall. So that's one. How do we grow that relationship with people that we already have relationships with? Number two is, how do we start talking with faith-based nonprofit organizations and say, we got a lot of space. How do we not know that there's a nonprofit who's looking to build a building and do their ministry someplace, but they don't have anywhere to be? Would they be willing to come here? We've got space. We certainly could make that reasonable so that we could do that ministry with them. Not because we might get money from them and charge rent, that's the old way. But because we might get to know the people who are doing ministry with them. And if we do ministry with them, they might want to be a part of a congregation that takes that seriously. Anybody listen to my sermon today? I like to think most of you are here. Yeah, I was here. Moderately awake. I had a wonderful conversation with the exact kind of individual that we hope would come and be a part of this community. A pastor called, said this is somebody who's in need of community. This is someone who feels disconnected. They don't have a safe place to be. And they weren't very trusting of churches. But this pastor had made a friend. That friend talked to the pastor, said, could you look and see if there were places of community and put them in touch with us? That's without doing any advertising. Now that's one. One isn't going to cut it. But I think that's God reminding us. What we're doing matters. There are people out there that want to be a part of places where we care the way that we do. Where we're willing to love and accept everybody. Where people who are struggling with who they are, how they're going to live, how they're going to love, we say there's a place for you here. And we're very blessed to have some folks, one of them, I don't know how or why he agreed to a 3-year term, has connections with the Arizona Republican, with radio stations. We've got a story to tell. And we're going to tell it like I am right now. I think there will be people that come join us. I think there are people who are longing to see churches do the kinds of things that we're doing. I think we know that, but it's hard. It's hard to trust. It's hard to dig down around those roots. It's hard to say, I'm willing to give to that because I think it's important, but we can do better. We can do better. If you think this is the kind of place that can do that, get on board. Get on board. Don't make it about what fits or what works for you, because I promise you, the fig tree's not happy about what it's going to go through for the year. Stop and think if you are the fig tree. All the way down to the roots. We're going to rethink it. And we're going to provide some really good, dare I say, some good, right? I don't know about this new pastor. I've said again and again, Gloria Day folks know it. I train for the fire department. I'm much more prophet than I am chaplain, and the days of being gentle are just about past us if we actually want to do something. There are people out there who want to be a part of this. There are organizations that we have to work with. But just doing worship 1 hour of 1 day of 1 week is not going to financially drive a campus like this anymore. You can't afford what it takes. And don't for a second think that I don't know that I'm the most expensive ticket on that. I know. But I also know, Palo Christi folks, I love you. I also know. I haven't had a raise in 15 years because what we're doing matters. Because what we're trying to do is where God is leading the church. So are you willing for a year to dig down to the roots? Are you willing for a year to try and put some good fertilizer around it? Because if we do, I think God will bless us. I really do. And if not, that's okay. Because we've been faithful. We've been faithful. And we will do the faithful thing. We will step aside if need be. I don't think that will need be. That's where we're headed. That's what we're going to try and do. I'm glad. Please.
Now, are there any questions? Please.
Hopefully you can hear me.
Sure.
Sure.
I'll go over here so
There you go.
Just one that's kind of a question for clarification. I hope it's just a language difference. On the budget, under youth activities, it has 0, and I know it has 0 because there is memorial or especially gifted money that will fund that. But in Palo Christi style, we always had youth activities and children's, like Sunday school, listed as 2 separate items. So I want to make sure that youth includes all of that, and we're not saying we're going to have money for youth and nothing for younger children. I'm just clarifying that.
Yeah, I think I can clarify that quickly and easily in one word. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's just a language thing. We lumped it all together.
And I was hoping it was just a language.
Yep.
And the second thing is, am I misunderstanding, or is there a motion on the floor for this budget, and I don't think we're supposed to be voting on it? I think it's just supposed to be being presented.
You are correct.
Okay, so if there is a motion, then it probably needs to be withdrawn, because we're not gonna vote on it.
You are correct. Thank you.
Just catch it.
Look at us Gloria Day folks getting stuck in what we've done in the past. After that wonderful little Bible study, and then we got stuck in the past. You're absolutely right. Thank you, Amy.
So can we get the motion withdrawn? Okay, there is no motion on the floor.
Kind of, if I could just have what Amy is saying, the congregational board will act more like what we think of the Presbyterian session. Gloria Day, we always would present the budget, we had to approve the budget by vote. With the new constitution, if you want to go back and read, we don't have to do that anymore. But basically, the board going forward will do that. We'll hopefully have input from the congregation as things are going on, but then we'll present it to the congregation. Basically an information item. You don't have to vote on it. So Amy's exactly right.
And hopefully for those of you, right, with a Lutheran accent, this is probably the biggest change. And as we talk through this merger, and Paul can attest to this, as we talk through this, Linda and I, we recognize this is one of the biggest changes that as Lutherans we had to come to and say we've got to let go of. Now, it's not that big of a change. It's not that there is an input. But for us, right, it was always, well, let's see who feels like being on council and we'll get some good folks. But ultimately, everything's going to come back to the congregation for a vote anyway, so I'll have my say. Now the reality is for us Lutherans, we need to really think through who's representing us. We need to think about who's going to be on that congregational board, because you are empowering them to make decisions on the ministry for you. And when we come to our annual meeting, we're going to share with you the decisions that we've made. Now, I will be there to help and guide, but these are the folks that you're lifting up, and these are the folks that you're electing. And so that's going to be the slight difference. What I like about the Presbyterian model is that our Presbyterian brothers and sisters take a lot of input on the front end before they ever put it together. And so there is going to be plenty of opportunity for input, and I know our Lutheran friends will give it. So this is just a little different way of going about it, but that's probably one of the biggest changes for us. This is a presentation of the ministry plan and our budget for the coming year. And you're right, Amy, not something that we vote on. Thank you. Look at you. Well done. So I was just getting to the agenda to look.
Administrative reports.
All right, next up are the administrative reports. I know you all read those, right? Those are really, really moving. Please do. Please do. Take them home and read them. Both Pastor Linda and I wrote articles for all of you. So please read through that, as well as the folks who do the ministry in this place. So read through those when you get a chance. That's not anything that we have to move or accept, but I want you to be aware of it. That is here in the report. It gives you an idea of the ministry that we did and kind of the thinking. And please, especially you from Palo Christi, read through Pastor Linda's, right? That's kind of her last little letter to all of us, but especially to all of you. So please do so. Now, what's up next, Carrie? Those are the reports. Next up, this is a little different. Folks at Palo Christi, you have individuals that you have elected. So folks from your session, and Paul's going to help me here, I'm starting to learn the vernacular. I'm starting to learn the language. Ruling elders are the ones who were asked, am I right, to be able to go and be a part of presbytery affairs? In the Lutheran Church, we have members of our congregation accompany me to our synod assemblies. So our representatives always come from the body of the congregation. And they're usually not folks who are necessarily on council or on session. So what we've found out from our two denominations is that we're going to be allowed to do both. On the one hand, that's wonderful because it means we're not going to lose anything from either one of our denominations. I've had people ask me on both sides, you know, I've been a Lutheran my whole life. It's just hard for me to stop being a Lutheran and come with you guys. We're still Lutheran. I am an ELCA Lutheran ordained pastor. I am very blessed to be able to serve in a joint call with Presbyterians, who I am learning a lot from, and it's making my ministry and my faith better. I've also had conversations from some of the Presbyterians saying, well, I don't know about this. You know, I've been Presbyterian my whole life. I'm not sure I want to be turned into a Lutheran. You're not going to be. You are still a Presbyterian church, right? We have the blessing of being able to be connected to both churches. Now, that's wonderful because there's lots of resources we'll be able to use. The downside for me is I just doubled my annual meetings, right? The downside for some of you, you got to go with me. So from the Gloria Dei side, you'll understand what we mean by this. We've got to elect 2 representatives from this congregation to come with me to our synod assembly. That's our annual meeting with the whole synod. All the other Lutheran churches here within our synod meet. We talk about the ministry that we're doing together. We hear the reports of the work that's being done. It is a wonderful, wonderful opportunity. We do it once a year. Presbyterians have 4 meetings during the year. Lutherans, what did I just sign up for? Right? Now, those meetings are a little bit smaller. They're a little bit more intimate, and I kind of like that you develop relationships. I kind of like that Presbyterian model. But we've got to elect 2 individuals to go with me to our synod assembly this summer. Now, those 2 individuals, and this is what's so wonderful about the merger, don't necessarily have to be Palo or Gloria Dei folks. They can be any 2 members from Gloria Christi Federated Church. So I would take any nominations from the floor for I need a male and a female to come join me for our synod assembly this coming year. Are there any nominations? I'm sorry? It is. That's a good question. Are the dates in there? Did she put the dates in there? Mary Beth, do you know what the dates are? Yeah, it's usually that second week in June, and I think it's here this year. Yeah, I think it's here. The model, just so for Presbyterians, the model is every other year it's in Phoenix. Okay? So every other year it's here in Phoenix. On the opposite years, it's either up in Las Vegas or it's down in Tucson. So this coming summer, it's here. It's here in Phoenix. I thought it was. And it usually takes place, what is it? June 10th and 11th. It's going to take place at Love of Christ. And so always hard when we're at the annual meeting. We've got to come up with 2 names. We've got to actually have it in the meeting notes. So I need 2 names, 2 nominations, a male and a female, to come join me at the Synod Assembly. Any brave souls? Now remember, if you're nominating yourself, wonderful. If you're nominating someone else, make sure they know. Fantastic. Fantastic. Love to have you. That's Nellie? Yep, Nellie Williams. You got Nellie? Any other male or female? And then we can have a runoff if we need to. But anyone else willing to go with me to hear a little bit more and represent this new? This will be a fun one to go to, honestly, because we're going to be lifted up as officially the newest Lutheran and Presbyterian church in both the Synod and the Presbytery. So I'm sure they'll have us stand up and wave. And Kelly, who are you nominating? Fantastic. Thank you, brother. Thank you, brother. Any other names? Okay, we have got 2 names on the floor for individuals who would like to represent the new Gloria Christi Federated Church at the Grand Canyon Synod Assembly this year. Nellie Williams and Kelly Wyman. Any other names? Okay, I would accept a motion to accept these 2 names as our representatives for the upcoming Grand Canyon Synod Assembly. Thank you. Angie Teagan, do I have a second? David Alexander on the second. Any questions, thoughts, concerns on that? Okay, let's vote. Show of hands. Yes vote for the names that we have selected for our representatives. Any opposed? Fantastic, fantastic. Thank you both. As we get closer, they'll send us the materials that we need and the agendas. I'll make sure that I get it to both of you. And then we'll plan on being out there on those days. Thank you. All right, what is next? I think that is all we have. Let me close you in prayer. Yeah, please. Amy, please.
Are we voting on our nominating committee today for next year's officers, or are we doing that at a different meeting?
We're not. We'll have to do that in another meeting. I thought maybe the question would come up. This year, because we're not a federated church, we haven't come together as one church yet, we asked both the task force as well as the interim congregational board to put together the slate of names. Normally what's done, and Palo Christi knows this, is there's a nominating committee. And that nominating committee puts together the list of names of individuals who will serve on the session, in our case, in the congregational board. That nominating committee will be put together underneath the new congregational board. One of their first tasks will be to put together a nominating committee and ask folks from the community to be a part of that. So next year, and then going forward, we will have a nominating committee who does that. That won't be the responsibility of the congregational board. It'll be the responsibility of the nominating committee. So thank you for that. But we're not voting on that committee now. Any other questions? Please.
Before we adjourn, I just personally, myself, and I think the congregation agrees that the task force that we put together, all the work we did, headed up by Paul West, I mean, what a monumental job that was to bring us to the point where we're at today. And if it wasn't for that, we would not be here.
I could not agree more. And we got a couple members from that committee here. Now, stand up. Amy, stand up. Jess, where are you? Stand up. You were on that committee. Stand up. Emma, where are you? There you are. Thank you all. Thank you all. And Pastor Linda as well, if she's watching.
She is watching.
Miss you, sister. Miss you, love you. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for that. Absolutely. None of this would be possible if it wasn't for those folks helping to guide us through this process.
I'd like to have someone spell and
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, for those of you who haven't had a chance to get to know Ann Skipper, Ann has been my right arm pretty much ever since I started ministry at Gloria Dei. She's an incredible gift to this community. If you haven't met her yet, come. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we're here. We're here from about 10 a.m. until about 4:30. So come and meet her. But Ann has just been a gift to our community and just a blessing to me. A lot of this wouldn't be possible without her efforts too, so thank you. Thank you for that. Well, thank you. Please. Oh. No, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. And anytime that's sort of extended to me, I always say, I'm a called and ordained minister in the Church of Jesus Christ. It is still my privilege. It is still my honor. So thank you. And thank you. I'm excited to continue to walk this journey with you a little bit longer. Let's see where it might go. Let's see what might come of it. Before I send you on your way, I want to share with you this little poem that I wrote in my report. And I want you to listen to these words because I think they speak to kind of where we're at and the mindset that we're at. This is from a Kashmiri poet, right? Pervez Ali. And it's part of a poem entitled Planting Seeds of Hope. And here's the poem. The joys of realizing the dreams we dared to vision, to reap the fruits of blood, sweat, and dedication. Many travel far and wide to find a success source. Truth, honesty, and love must be the driving force. And so my hope and my prayer for all of us, for all of you this year, is that this can be a place where we will experience truth, where we will be honest and share that honesty with one another, and where we will embrace God's love, share it with one another, and then make it available for our larger world and our community. Let's pray. Gracious God, we know that there are always paths that you call us to follow that we cannot see the end. But we trust that especially as we head into this new season of Lent, we trust in following you and walking this dusty path. Help us to recognize where your Spirit is blowing us. Help us to open ourselves to it. I thank you for those who are walking this path alongside me. Continue to bless and guide them. Make of this place what you will. Help us to be a wellspring, a source of love, hope, and inspiration for our larger community. I thank you for the gifts, for the dedication, for the patience, and for the willingness of these folks of both Palo Christi and Gloria Dei, and I thank you. I thank you for making of us together a place where we might bring glory to Christ, glory to your Son, the one whom we follow, the one whom we love. And now I ask that you keep all of these folks safe. Continue to bless them until we gather together once again in your Son's name. Amen. Really good to be with you all this morning. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for all the hard work. Thank you all for presenting and for sharing your time and your talents today.
So this meeting is adjourned.
There you go.
However, I would like the newly elected church board to gather briefly up here after the meeting. But the rest of you have a fantastic day.